Welcome back. You're watching Creating Cooperative Kids, and I'm your host, Bill Corbett. Everyone experiences stress at times. It helps us develop the skills we need to cope with and adapt to new and potentially threatening situations. However, the beneficial aspects of stress diminish when the person is unable to cope effectively. It also can have devastating effects on a person's children and family if it's not handled well. With me in the studio today to offer some stress coping tips is Dr. Charles Glassman, founder of the Center for Longevity and Wellness located in Pomona, New York, and a physician who has practiced general internal medicine for over 20 years. Dr. Glassman is also the author of the award-winning book, Brain Drain, a guide to the relationship between the health of the mind and the body. Welcome to the show, Charles.
Thanks for having me, Bill.
So in your book, one of the things that, first of all, thank you for sending me the copy to take a look at. I noticed there's something you call the automatic brain. Now, I love what you had written, and I don't think people really think deeply about what that means. Can you explain a little bit more?
Sure, and I won't get too technical,
okay,
not
good.
Too many medical terms in this, but you know, I'm a general medical doctor, and most people look for me to kind of go in and whip out my prescription pad and take care of them with a prescription. But you said something very interesting in the intro to the show, how when you were talking with a woman who was having a challenge with their child, you asked the woman, what's going on in your life? And this is something that I can't ignore with my patients, people I come into contact with. And me thinking about this automatic brain started about 6 years ago. Well, it started much longer ago when I had certain stresses and wondering, you know, why do I get nervous when I'm coming on a talk show, for instance? You know, why does my heart beat fast? But one of the things that really makes me think about it are the challenges of everyday life. And a few years ago, 6 years ago, a gentleman came into my office and said how motivated he felt after I spent time with him, taking time to talk with him about his issues, not necessarily his medical issues, but what was going on in his life. But then, when he'd leave my office, things would fall apart. And we know how that happens. We may be very motivated if we hear a particularly inspiring speaker. We may go to our place of worship and really feel faithful again and just all charged up. But then we come home and our children are arguing, or we may see bills piling up on the desk, or whatever it is, and things kind of unravel. And I was trying to think about how I was going to keep them on track. And so this kind of weekly email message that we came out with together grew into my trying to think about what sabotages us, what stands in our way of success. And I came to thinking, well, you know, we're the product of hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. So how different are we really from our primeval ancestors, who all they were concerned about, and primates, was protecting from danger, threat, or vulnerability. So anytime we are faced with danger, threat, or vulnerability, we have a reaction, and that reaction is fight or flight. So we all know that reaction physiologically when we feel it, but we may not be really aware of what's happening in our brain when that happens. And we have a lot of modern day examples of that fight or flight.
And it's interesting you say that, because and why I want to bring this up is because I don't think parents realize that they're running probably a great part of their day on that automatic brain. And if they are able to stop and slow down and bring themselves consciously aware of what's going on, it can change a lot of things. But, you know, it's like, what about traffic? We've got the holidays coming up. People are blasting the horn and they're mad about everything. And, you know, it's like a war because people are running on that. So what can parents do?
Yeah, it's very important to kind of be aware. Be aware of what's happening. When you are angry with your child, what are you really angry about? What's really going on? You talk about traffic. I always say when somebody cuts me off or honks the horn at me, they're not angry at me. There's something going on in their life. So it's very important, as you said, to find out what is really going on in my life. What has been going on? And I'll ask people this all the time when they come in with even a medical problem to me. What's happening in your life in the last 3 to 6 months? You know, what is really going on? What is that fight or flight? If a child is disobeying you, okay, or disrespecting you, what are you really angry at? And I talk about this primitive thing we all have. It's called a one-up trigger. Okay? We are always aware of if somebody is one-upping us or if we have an opportunity to one-up somebody. So a child's, and that is a primitive nature because that puts us in jeopardy. If a child, even though a child is small, if they're disrespecting us, it puts our authority at risk, and that automatically, instantaneously, and I call it automatic brain, it flips the switch. And when the switch is flipped on, we react by fight or flight. And in a parenting situation, that comes out as being aggressive or being passive. The aggression being the fight, the passivity being the flight, and neither one works.
So what can parents do? You know, we're focusing on parents here and helping parents become more engaged and masterful parents. And if a huge percentage of us, and I think probably everybody does at some point in their life.
I'm a father of 4. I know.
What can we suggest to parents knowing this?
One of the things is just to be aware of that fight or flight to begin with, and that aggressive and passive nature, because we really want to be assertive. That's the key, where there's a win-win. And the way to do that is sometimes to give yourself a timeout. To say, okay, not my child having a timeout, but let me take a timeout. Let me take a step back. And you said it great, don't say so much. So take a step back and even say, I've said, my kids are a little older now, but I would say, Daddy's going to take a timeout. I would literally pick my body up, go to another room, and take some breaths. Count to 10 or 20, slow, deep breaths, because that fight or flight gets our respirations going. It makes us accelerate. It makes us aggressive, want to fight or flee. Get my breathing together, get my sensibilities, so when I come back, I can be assertive. I can make sure that I'm not reacting because I was reflecting. So taking the time out is a big one.
You know, I am so delighted to hear you say that, because I am constantly telling parents, first of all, I don't believe in the model of timeout and the way it's being used today. It's actually been destroyed. Experts created timeout for children who are out of control and are likely to injure themselves or others. But I'm always telling parents, you need the time out. And what I've noticed is even 5 minutes, now, I'm not telling you to go have a martini. I'm telling you just walk away. You come back 5 minutes later and it can actually look different, right?
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, it's really, it works that way. And it's also important to think about what's going through your brain when you're reacting that way. And you had mentioned something earlier when somebody, a child, 5 years old, whatever, comes back with something that they stole.
Yeah.
Okay? And your first reaction is, who does that?
Yeah, right.
Who does that?
Yeah.
And who does that? I mean, that's your child. So you're already 10 years ahead of time. Okay, they're going to be truant.
Right.
Whether they're going to in high school, they're going to get bad grades. They're not going to get into college. They're not going to get married. Whatever.
Well, I'm so delighted to hear a doctor say that a parent needs to take a time out. Listen, thank you so much for coming out today and talking about this, and good luck with your book.
Thanks so much, Bill.
We are thankful for experts like Dr. Glassman who are helping us cope with everyday stress so that we can live a happier and more effective life. But it's up to each of us individually to hear the message and practice it every day and in every moment, especially with our kids. Now, coming up in my last segment, I'm going to ask my guests to join me on the set and help me answer a viewer's question related to the daily practice of reconnecting with our kids. Stay with me through the break. We'll be right back.